Very often we look at one aspect of a situation and we don't look in a complete way. We don't take into account the various details, the various aspects. I make just one example. During our lifetime, since when we were little, we develop step by step an identity. So to make an example, when I'm a kid and I climb on a tree and I fall and then I climb again and then I can overcome the difficulty, I develop the identity where I say to myself, I can do it. Or if I fall and then I try to go back and or someone says that it's dangerous and no, you can't do it, then no, I remain fearful. But the point is that so that we develop an identity step by step. There we have the part whether I'm good to be with people or not, or I like this or not. And if we describe the identity of each one of us is extremely complex. There are many aspects inside of it. Can you hear me well? Because I'm a little bit cold, so we have an identity that is made out of many aspects. So one of the strong aspects of our childhood is our process of building, developing an identity, which is made out of not only of our subjective experiences, inner experiences, but it's also connected with our body, with the environment, with the people with which we interact, with the things that we do. It's connected with many things. But all these things during our lives remain all the same, don't they? No. Of course, they don't remain the same. All these things are constantly changing. Our body, does it remain the same? Our mind, our emotions, sensations, the other people around us, the environment, the context that we live, everything changes. It's not that at certain point, one certain day it changes. It's constantly transforming. In the midst of all of this, there is a challenge, which is the mental image that we generate at a certain point where we say, I am this. Actually, it's more like a sort of photography of a certain moment. It's like, okay, we have a meeting together, maybe a Christmas, and then we take a group picture, and then there we go. And then time passes, and then you say, look at our family, look at our group of friends, but are we that or were we that? But not only we were that, but that picture represents something of just an instant, because like a few minutes before was something else, or some minutes later was something else again. And when we create an idealized image of ourselves, and when we say, I am this, it's a photography. But then we relate through that. And it's important for us to understand that whether we want it or not, we relate with the world, and we ourselves are part of the world. We relate with people, with situations, with everything through mental images. In Tibetan, it's called Tonchi. The most correct translation is generalized meaning. I make an example that I've made many times, but I like it, so I repeat it. Then there is always someone who hasn't listened to it yet. So we can see this napkin, right? If I ask you how, okay, how is the napkin? Do you have like a mental image of the napkin? What was the color? Like what was the shape? Like rectangular, square. So does it match? Is it the same napkin? Now, has it changed or is it still the same? We can go on the whole evening. Sooner or later we will do it. Is it? It's always the same napkin, right? Okay, and now? the main question is, when I showed you every time before, like since like the first time, and the second time and the third time, the mental image, did it change or was it always the same? Why was it the same? Because the object was still able to sustain the characteristics and functions of that mental image. So it was squared, a red of that size, and so on. When it changed in this sense, is it still able to sustain the same mental image, or does it need a new one? We need a new one. And the old one, can we still access it? Do we still have the mental image of the red squared napkin? Yes, there is the memory, the image of the napkin, you know. And so the image of the first napkin and the one that is there now, do they match? No. And so we say it has changed. As long as the object matches the mental image, we believe that it hasn't changed. The more we have a gross mental image, the more it seems that things are not changing. The more the mental image is detailed, the more we see small changes and we realize that the thing is constantly changing. And here there is a strange mechanism because we relate with with the word through mental images. So is it the same napkin or not? It depends whether the mental image sustains the object characteristics. Someone could say, no, it's not the same napkin, it's the continuity of the napkin, because they sit here hours discussing philosophically, but that's not the point. The point is that we relate with the word through mental images. The mental image is where we give a name. That name brings with itself characteristics and functions. It's squared, it's big, it's red, here and there. And then, okay, it has this purpose or that other purpose. A napkin is more simple, a person is definitely more complex. But when I see you, do I relate with you or with that mental image that I have of you? And then we have specific categories, the specific mental image, and then the macro categories, which are like boxes where we put the mental image. For example, okay, let's imagine like a person, like whatever person. We have a mental image of that person. That mental image, okay, we also have the picture of that person, like a snapshot of what are the characteristics, the way that we relate with that person, and so on. And then we put that person inside of a category, which is friend, enemy, brother, sister, husband, wife, lover. I don't know. Maybe we have 1,000 possible categories. Son, grandparent, teacher. We can find thousands categories. What happens when I love you and I put you inside of a category and you match the mental image that I have of that category? Because I have a mental image of what you are, but I also have an idealized image of how a wife should be, of how a father should be, a brother, a sister, or a lover, or whatever. I don't know if you've ever heard or said the sentence, a mother should not be like this, a son should not do that, or something else. What does it mean? I love you. I've put you with so much love inside of that little box, and you don't fit there. Because if you are a mother, then you should be like that, because mothers should be like that. And if you're a son or a husband, or if you are a wife, or teacher, disciple, friend, whatever, then you should be inside of these categories. So not only we have an idealized mental image of the person, we also have a mental image of the categories where we put the person. Human, then there are many, and then we also add, you're a Buddhist. How many times I've heard, ah, okay, to me, no one has ever told me because that's not my weak point. But I've heard it many times. Ah, if you're a Buddhist, you shouldn't get angry. The answer is, if I am angry, it's because I'm a Buddhist. Because if I was a Buddha, then I wouldn't need to be angry. The Buddhist is that who wants to become a Buddha, so still is getting angry as attachment, fear, and so on, because it's on the path. It's not arrived yet, because the Buddha doesn't need to be a Buddhist. But what happens is that, okay, we have categories, and every person, if we check, can think about someone close to you. How many are the categories that we impute to that person? Are we able to find at least three? So, of these categories that we attribute, for each one of these, we have an idealized image. The person should be like this. What happens when the person doesn't match to that idealized image, to that category? We need to update the category, or do we need to fix the person? Of course, we need to fix the person. That's what we try to do. Because if we need to create an exception to the category for each person, then the category becomes so broad that then all the categories melt together, and then we don't have any more categories, which will be the most right thing. But our minds don't worry like that. So what happens is that, okay, our tendency is I put you inside of a category. As long as you fit in there, then you are a good mother, good brother, good friend, because you are what I expect you to be. The day that you don't fit there, then it's your fault. Something is wrong. So I have an idealized image of what you are. I have an idealized image of the categories to which you belong. Let's remember that the aspect of the idealized mental image that actually the mental image helps us to understand that it's something that we have in the inside. The idealized image helps us to understand that it's a subjective matter of something that we project. But mental image and idealized image are the same thing. It's not something that happens just with people, but also with places, situations, objects. We talked about the napkin. I remember once a friend that was in Moscow in the 90s, 92, 94, I don't remember the exact year, but she, she was there just a little while before Russia opened up, and she was there. And Lama went to Russia because there are some connected sacred places of Buddhism. And after it was still a time where Russia was difficult to find things to eat that are similar to what we eat, and they got there, and there was the first McDonald's of Moscow, which meant that, okay, after like a week in the inside of Russia, it was a lot. So this friend goes in the McDonald's and she sits there to eat. There was a man next to her, and she takes her burger, and she had a napkin. She took one napkin, one of number. She put it on the table next to her burger. She was eating. Then she sits next to her. Sits like a well-educated man, and he looks at her, and he points at her napkin, and she says in a language that she didn't understand. And he says like, okay, "Excuse me," and then he takes the napkin, and she didn't understand well. He takes the napkin, he breaks it half, and she takes half, and he gives to her one half, and he keeps the other half for him. So if we do this at the restaurant now today, what do they tell us? I'm not going to touch the napkin that you touched. I don't know what you have in your hands. I don't know what we think that will come out of it. But the point is that what is a napkin? What value does it have? It depends by the value that I attribute, which depends on how much I have. It depends on whether it's something that is everywhere and you throw it all the time. But if it's something that it's difficult to have, then it has another value. My grandpa, for example, he was collecting stamps, and he took the commitment that he will never throw away a stamp in his life. Why? Because when he left Europe, when he was 14 years old during the Second World War, from a Hebrew family, it was quite a wealthy family, and they couldn't take anything with them. And with his brother, they had a collection of stamps. So what they did, my grandfather was able to have like a title of as an honorary consular of Costa Rica, and with that they managed to get a passport and to run away. But there was the rule that in while taking the train to go out of Germany, they had the possibility of only going out with their clothes, and they could take just a very limited amount of money. They could not take anything else. My grandparent with his brother, they had this beautiful collection of stamps. They take the most important ones and they separate them and they put it inside of a small envelope and they hide it in the pockets and they take that with them. And when they go through the frontier, through the border, and they checked them because they knew that they were Hebrew, but because they had the passport of Costa Rica, then they were able still to pass. Then the law was saying that if the father of the family had a certain citizenship, then also the other family could follow. But any small mistake would have been enough to not pass through. And then they go on the train, and the second check is more kind on the train. And my grandpa takes out the stamps and says to his father, "Ah, look, I was able to take this." And he takes a very big slap from his father, and then he said, "Okay, great that we have the stamps, but we could have all ended up in prison." And when they get to Brazil, and my great grandfather is not able to find a job, then they are able to sell these stamps and they live for 6 months with the money of these stamps. And from that time, then he said, "Okay, never again I will throw a stamp in my life." Now, if we imagine the grandfather that takes a stamp and puts it aside, the value that is attributed, the meaning that it gives, the mental image that it attributes to that stamp, and that of a person that doesn't have that past, how different is it? Are we able to see that when we talk about a mental image, it's not a technical thing? It's not like to say just like a stamp. It comes with emotions, it comes with a history, it comes with many things. So when we are in front of anything, there is a past that comes with it. So we relate with anything through a mental image. And among all these things, there is also ourselves. How, how do we relate with ourselves through a mental image, which partly we call identity, who I am. What happens is that when, okay, I cut the napkin in half and we realize that the napkin changed, it's easy to leave the previous mental image and then to update it because I don't know how much attachment did you have to the previous mental image of the napkin? I hope little. But when we cultivate it with a lot of time and effort and sacrifice, a certain mental image of ourselves, and then at a certain point we need to update it. Where is the problem? What is the strongest attachment? The mental image or facing the reality of the present moment, of the change and the impermanence in the same way? What does it speak? What speaks louder? In practice, impermanence. In the subjectivity, the attachment to the mental image. I make an example. Now, this thing impressed me a lot because it was the moment where I had I understood something. I was in the Netherlands during a congress. It was a congress organized by a friend of ours, Dr. Rohir, and he, under the guidance of Lama Michel Rinpoche, had organized various congresses of complementary psychiatry. It was a very nice thing that he did, but anyway, during one of these years before the main congress, where there were 1,500 people, he did like a sort of small pre-congress in the house of the doctors with just the speakers and other few people. There were there 30 doctors and then me and Lama Ganchen. And it was a very beautiful meeting and really high quality doctors with beautiful things. And for me, it was interesting to see scientists talking in public and then talking privately. One that I liked a lot was, anyway, it doesn't matter now, David Servan Schreiber. He wrote 2 books on cancer, very beautiful, 2 bestsellers. Anyway, it was also there that day. And as we were there, at a certain point there was lunch. And what do you eat in the Netherlands? Soup and sandwiches. For some strange reason, I created an idealized image that I don't like soup. It could be for the fact that for many years as I was living in India, every day, almost every day at dinner, there was like Tibetan soup, even also with 40 degrees. At 5 in the afternoon, I was sweating. I have the memory of sweating as I was eating the soup. Maybe it was for that. Maybe it was like a genetic thing. My grandpa, until it was like 90 years old, if you gave him soup, he would say, "I'm not ill." And so I had this idealized image that, okay, the soup, I don't like it. Maybe okay at dinner if it's really cold, but at lunch it's like terrible. I don't know, does it happen to you to go to a restaurant to take soup at lunch? I think it's difficult, right? So I think you can understand. So I was there, and at the lunch there was nothing else but soup and sandwiches, and it was like a moment where I was starting to look into my intolerances, and I couldn't eat neither cheese nor bread, and so I was left with the soup, and I was there eating the soup because okay that I don't like it, but it's also I'm not so stubborn. Better the soup than being hungry. And so then a friend comes to me, and she knows me well, so she says, how is lunch going? I say, yeah, a soup for lunch, what do you think it is? Then I end the cup of soup. The reality is that the taste was good, temperature was right, texture was good, and then the cup ends, and then I tell myself I want another one. Then I tell to myself again, no, I don't like soup. It's as if it's like a betrayal to myself to take another soup. Why? Because my mental image where I have the identity of I don't like soup speaks louder than the immediate experience of the present moment. How many times does it happen to us that our direct experience doesn't match to our idealized image, mental image? And often, what do we give more weight to? To the mental image. And on one hand, this doesn't allow to accept changes, and then we remain stubborn for a long time. No, this can't be like that. It's not right that uh, I get the soup, and I cannot like soup, and I can stay there for a long time like that. And then maybe I eat the soup and I like it, and I feel guilty because yesterday I didn't like soup. But if we didn't realize, there is something called impermanence. And also, we ourselves are impermanent. We are constantly in a process of change. And one of the great challenges that we have in life is that of updating the mental images. Updating the mental images of the others, that we have of the others, and those that we have of places, of situations, and to update the mental image that we have of ourselves. Because as time passes, our body changes, our experiences change, our context changes, everything changes. And it's right to understand that I will not have the same result when parts of the equation are different. I remember Lama Michel Rinpoche telling to me, the first time that he told me this was a few years before he died, and he said, you know, my mind wants to go to a certain speed and do certain things, but my body can't keep up with the same speed. And I am already experiencing this. So this came to my mind because last Wednesday I came back from the trip to the United States that I did, and my first idea was, okay, I get to the airport in the morning, then the flight was delayed, and it was in the afternoon, and then I say to myself, okay, I come to Milan to do the Wednesday at Kunpen, then I'm like, okay, maybe I need to rest. Years ago I would have done that. That was my will, but at a certain point I need to understand that, okay, I'm young, I am 44 years old, but between 44 and 25, does something change? For, someone could say, yeah, just wait when you're 60, but it's normal. So, like between 25 and 44, something changes. When I had just arrived in Italy, I will do crazy things, like with also. Today I can still partly do it. It's not that I didn't do anything these days. I like since when I came back from the US, then spent only one day in Albagnano. I just jumped from cities to city, like. But I saw that okay, one needs to create some room to rest. So something that I didn't do before, then I had to put in the question of things. I need to respect that. Why? Because I changed. I've changed. I have different needs as things change in our lives. And it's important for us to be able to, from time to time, to stop a little bit and to make an assessment to kind of revisit, review the present conditions. Because there are unfavorable conditions that then change and become favorable. There are favorable conditions that then at a certain point are not there anymore. And we sometimes are left blocked in that idealized image. I'm not able to do that, and I remain in that feeling I'm not able to. For example, I am a lonely person. Then I am in a good company, but I remain a lonely person because I'm left in the identity of a lonely person. And we can make many examples like this. But each one of us, as we go on, we build this image, and it's fundamental for us to try at our best to have a mental image that is flexible, a mental image that adapts to the conditions, to the variables as they happen, because they change. I don't know. There are sometimes when people develop a very strong identity in function of a role, like I am the manager. It's not that I'm going to wash dishes, but today we need to wash the dishes. But I am the manager. What do you care about that? We need to wash dishes. When you need to do the manager, then you do the manager. Now we need to wash the dishes. It's not that it makes you less of a manager. Then, if it's a time to be a manager instead of doing that, then you wash dishes, then it's not fine because you have a role and you need to do that. And one of the keys in this is that what we do doesn't define who we are. I am not the Lama. Lama is a function. I am the Lama, which is the Tibetan word for guru, so spiritual guide of many people. It's a function that I carry out for many people, but it's not what I am. It's not my identity. It's not that I can't do that because I am the Lama. I don't know if this is clear. I am myself. I am a whole of many things, but what we do, and then the roles that we have also don't define who we are. But very often we develop a huge attachment to these roles. I am the father, I am this, I am that. I don't know. We can have many possible roles. And these roles and positions, are they permanent or impermanent? They're impermanent, right? What happens the day that that role is not there anymore? Who am I? What am I? The role is not there anymore. What am I then? Sometimes I've seen, okay, people where the role is not there anymore, but they are want people still to call them like that role so they can keep the identity at least. Or like with some strange hierarchies. I make a different example. Like in a company, when you have different roles and there is the manager and the CEO, let's say, and after one has been a CEO for a while and then down steps and becomes a manager, then I still call you a CEO because then I don't know, maybe otherwise your ego is hurt. The reality is that it's a huge scam. This attachment that we have to titles and to idealized images, I am something that it's not my person. That role is nothing but a function that I carry out, and inside of that function, it's right that there is a certain kind of respect of relationship. This is normal as long as I carry out that role so that it can be done properly. The others, by interacting with that role, then there needs to be like a correct way of relating. Buddha himself gave a teaching that is called the Singalavada Sutra, the Sutra of the Six Directions, where Buddha speaks about six types of relationships that we all have: the relationship with the parents, with the children, the husband, the wife, and the job, the teachers, the spiritual guide. And for each type of relationship, it talks about rights and duties. So relationship works well when both duties and rights are respected. So me towards my parents, what do I expect from them and what are my duties towards them? The same thing with the husband, with the wife, with the friends, and so on. So it's right that when there is a role, that role needs, so that it works well, then there are some conventions that we create, establish, but I am carrying out that role in that moment. I am not that, because at a certain point that role ends. Even if we think, for example, the role of a father and of a mother, how different is the role of the father of a father and mother during as time passes, as children get older. The type of role that they have when the child is like from 0 to 6 years old, or when their son or daughter is 60 years old, changes completely. It's not because I am the dad or mom then that I am dead. It changes, like, and the same is for the role of a son or daughter towards the parents. It changes also with the different moments of life. But they change according to the things that we do, the commitment that we take, the relationships that we have. But none of this determines who we are. And to be able to make a distinction and to create a certain sane distance between what I am and what I do, it's important. I am not the Lama. I am myself. I am a person with all the various aspects that I have, and I am carrying out the role of spiritual guide, Lama, and so on. And not for everyone. And it's more than right that there is someone for which I am the Lama and someone for which I'm not, because I cannot be the spiritual guide of everyone. So if someone has this type of relationship with me, then it's right that there is a certain type of relationship, of way of relating. And if with someone else I don't have that kind of relationship, then it's right that there isn't the expectation that there of certain modes of relating. But sometimes it happens, I am the Lama, you cannot talk to me like that. But you're not my Lama. Where I want to get to is that the more we have an attachment and an identity based on what we are, the role that we perform, the recognition that we receive, the more we suffer when that is not respected, when it's not seen, and then when it changes and when it's not there anymore. A few days ago, I was in Pavia, and there was a scene that I liked. There was like a moment of sharing in a very beautiful place, in this college, very beautiful, and I met the rector, and we talked with him, and I really liked him. And then during the meeting, there was the person that in that context was like with the most important role with his function. He sat on the ground in the midst of everyone, and you couldn't understand who he was, in a very beautiful way, because he showed me a person that performs a function but is not that function. And so that's what appeared to me. Then I can talk about my perception, of course. I can also have someone, I can also see someone that seems attached to the image, but then it's not. But I really liked the attitude. And each one of us, for each one of us, it's important to ask the question to ourselves, who am I? I am a whole of things, of emotions, feelings, knowledge, experience, choices, connections, responsibilities, functions. We are a whole of many things, because then we have the tendency of taking a part and generalizing the whole. I am a sad person. Are you always sad? No. I am a happy person. But are you always happy? No, also not. So, are you happy or are you sad as a person? I am a person. Sometimes this person is happy, sometimes is sad. Then there are also periods where one is more sad, one is more happy, more angry. There are moments and moments in the lives of each one. But it's important for us to understand that we are a whole of many things, and among these things, there are the roles that we play, the responsibilities that we have, the relationships that we have, the emotions, and so on. There is our past. And the more we are able to also welcome the complexity of our being with the awareness of its impermanent nature. And so I am a complex being, and each one of these parts transform and changes. And and then I'm able to sail through life in a better way, because then during our lifetimes each one can think for himself. How many times has it happened to us? Maybe this is not the right time, okay, to find the right number. Let's try to remember a few times that it has happened in the crisis of having to revisit, review who we are, like a crisis of identity. Okay, teenagehood, then at a certain point, okay, the job, then do I marry or not? Then we can go on with many examples. Then I was married before, now I'm not. What am I then? Before there was something else. I was with children at home. Now I am doing a job, and then before I was doing something else. What am I then? And it's something that, okay, I want to be kind, but what am I? It's a stupid question, because I am not one thing. I am a whole of many things. And here there is an important aspect. Among many of the aspects that of which we are made of, this is not just about our being, but also about the situations that are made up of many people, many things. There are some variables that we see and recognize, and many others that we don't see and are not able to recognize. Someone said to me, no, because I was angry and I didn't know why, then I understood. I don't know if it has ever happened to you. But are we sure that we know that we understood, or is just that we found something to give to give it the reason of being angry? What happens is that how we feel in the present moment, behind that there are so many variables. And sometimes with reason, we set like a program to ourselves, it has to go like this and so on. And it's not for granted that we are able to do that, because maybe I set to myself a certain program and then to do something, and then when the time comes, I am tired, the mind goes somewhere else, and there are not the conditions to do that. Once, for example, I read something about the Vastu Shastra, which is technique for sacred constructions in Indian tradition, similar to the Feng Shui in the Chinese tradition. And I remember that it said that a house, so in order to be a good house, places need to inspire their functions. So when you get inside of the kitchen, you should feel that you want to cook. When you go to the living room, you feel like okay, you want to live. When you go to the bedroom, you feel like you want to sleep. If it's like a house that when you go to the bedroom, you feel like chatting, and when you go to the living room, you feel like sleeping. Okay, then the house is not really working. Something needs to be changed. Similarly, there are periods in our lives where we set to ourselves a certain goal and we don't feel like carrying that on I don't know if it has ever happened to you. Okay, I take that day off to study. Then the day comes, and then you can't do it, or you want to reflect on something, or you want to talk with that person, or you want to do something, and that day one is not able to do that. It's as if parts are missing to carry that thing on, because there are some variables that we're not able to see. And here there is something that I try to put in words, and I have a bit of hard time to do that. There is a part of intuition where we are able to feel when is the right time for something or something else. I don't know if this is clear. There are some times where when we know that that thing is good to do that, to make a certain change, but somewhere we feel like a voice, okay, yes, it would be good, but it's not the right moment. When one feels that there is a certain openness, then it's time to put energy and to do that. And then things flow better. And this takes us back to another aspect which also is very important of our being, which is not what we are, but it's part of our being, which is our intuition. It's fundamental. Me, this time that I was in the United States visiting Kyabche Rinpoche, is the reincarnation of the master of Lama Ganchen, and also now today is my main guru after that Lama Ganchen passed away. And so I was also in with the reincarnation of Lama Ganchen with his family, so that they could meet with Trengche Rinpoche. At a certain point, we were having an interview with Trengche Rinpoche, and among various things, he explained how the process of the finding of our incarnation happens. And he said a very special thing, two things together. He said, the main thing of the process of the search of the reincarnation, because it's something that we often ask, like how is it done, and we have a sort of Hollywood image of it, because what are the movies that we have seen about it? Okay, the Little Buddha and these kind of things, and they show that like the child is choosing the right object and so on. That is one very small part in a very complex process. And the most important part is not talked about, and we don't know it. And it's the first time that I've seen someone talking in public about it. And he explained, Trija Rinpoche explained that the main part happens in a meditative state, a deep state of intuition, where who's doing the search of the reincarnation is able to connect mind to mind with the person that one is looking for. So if I'm looking for the reincarnation of Lama Ganchen, I need to be able to connect in a meditative state to connect my mind with his mind. So with mind, we talk about that being that I'm looking for. So at the beginning of the process of the search, when you don't need to go so deep, then it's easier. But then at a certain point, it becomes so subtle that in order to do this practice, he said, I was waking up at 2:30 in the morning. Trengche Rinpoche is married, has wife, children, house, from other people, and during the day there is like a noise in the house, like children running, people calling me, we need to do this, we need to do that, always like requests and things. And to sit and meditate, yes, I do that during the day, but if it needs to be like something really deep, like how it's needed in this case, you can't always do that. And so to be able to listen to that, to have that deep level of concentration, I was meditating from 3 to 6 in the morning. So I was waking up at 2:30 when everyone was sleeping, and I was sitting there to meditate, to go through this process. And this, what does it show us, among other things? That also for such a special being like Trije Rinpoche, in order to get in touch with its own intuition, the more I need to get in touch with the intuition on a deeper level, the more I need silence from distractions. And for ourselves to get in touch with our intuition, we need silence. But the noise that we have is not just the noise that we hear. It's not that because there is a lot of noise outside, and there is a lot of noise outside, because I ask you, how much time do you spend during the day in silence? Like, I mean, when you're awake. I don't know. Those moments where, yes, okay, there are a few noises in the background, but there isn't any noise that one is actively listening to, hearing. Maybe it's like a half of a day. Maybe think for you, but I think it's very little. And if we add to that how much time during the day we spend that we are not actively looking or touching to something or hearing something, we can get to zero, because since when we are awake, when we wake up, we take the phone, then we do this, do that. We always need like a sensorial stimulus, and this constant contact with information and the senses, it brings us to a more superficial level of awareness. It's like saying that our mind is a sense, like the sight, the hearing, the touch. Now our senses, it's as if they had like a sort of inner setting of sensitivity. The more the object of perception is gross, is strong, the more the sensitivity is less. So if there is a lot of light, the sensitivity of seeing is less. If there is more light, then the sensitivity increases. If there is a lot of noise, the sensitivity of the hearing is less. If there is a lot of silence, the sensitivity of the hearing gradually increases more and more. And so it's the same with the touch, with the taste. One that always eats very strong uh, food types of food that are very tasty, then it's as if one didn't have the taste anymore in some way. Also, one that maybe never eats like spicy food, and one just needs a little bit to feel it a lot. And the same thing is with a sense of mind. The more the objects of perception of mind are gross, the less the mind is sensible. The more the objects of perception are subtle, the more mind becomes sensitive. In other words, in order to perceive low, subtle sounds like shades in the small sounds, I need to be able to have more silence. In order to be able to perceive the aspects of reality and of ourselves that are more subtle, for example, our intuition, we need silence, the silence of mind. And it's here where it gets where we have the importance of meditating. But before that, to decrease the unnecessary stimuli, and one could say, yes, Lama, but if you knew my life, and it's the reality of each one of us, who more, who less, but it's the reality of each one of us. What happens is that how important is my intuition for each one? For example, okay, we were talking before about choosing the right moment. Okay, I need to talk, the simple fact that I need to talk with someone about an important thing. how many variables should I observe to talk in a good way with that person? My emotional state, because if I go to talk with a person in an emotional state that it's unbalanced, what gets to the person before, like the words or the emotions? Once we have said the right thing in a wrong way, then it doesn't work. The way is not just the tone of the voice, but also the intention. So if I need to tell you something, the first thing I need to observe is my emotional state. Then there is the motivation of why I want to tell it to you. What do I want to obtain? And then I need to get into consideration the fact that you're also there. So I need to take into consideration your emotional state. Because if I have a good emotional state and clarity of what I want to say, but you are in a moment where you don't have the right emotional state, better to not say it. Why? Because we listen to the other through the filter of our emotions in the present moment. If I am angry and you tell me anything, I listen to what you're saying through my anger. And then if I'm angry with you, it's pointless that you tell me just anything. There are times where you just can't wait. That's something else. But the ideal moment is the moment where I have the correct emotion and I'm able to find the moment where also the other has the correct emotion, the right emotion of openness at least. And so that moment is created where there is room for dialogue, for listening, and then I can talk about something. But in order to get to this, then one needs a certain sensitivity, capacity of listening to ourselves and to the other. And for this, we need silence. Because otherwise, we are overwhelmed by our emotions, by our thoughts, by what we think that is the need of the moment, that is what I believe it's the need. And then it becomes like a mess often, not always, but often. And so, also in the talking with the other person, intuition is important. Listening, and then to take the more important choices in life even more, and to be able to listen to our intuition and to see things through the surface, then we need silence. And here I invite you again to create some room, to stop, to breathe, to breathe again, and bit by bit to create the habit, that inner calmness where we don't get in abstinence if we don't have external stimuli. Because what happens to many of us is that when we don't have external stimuli, we get into abstinence. I'm not seeing anything, I'm not hearing anything, I'm not eating anything. What's going on here then? Because we very often are in touch with one of our senses. When in a certain way take away the importance of these sensorial contacts, in the beginning we get into a sort of withdrawal. So the mind starts to look for things, the mind is agitated, and we need, through the breathing, bit by bit, to take us back to the present moment, to create that habit, and then one, bit by bit, gets more calm. And this makes us also more open to be able to listen, to also have a greater intuition. And there is also small warning to give here. It's like a contract where you have had attention, like written in a very small way. It's very well like the part of meditating, creating more silence, having more awareness, but it's important for us to remember that in the moment that when I'm able to have more awareness and to look through the surface more, not all that I will see I will like, also for myself. What do we do when we see something of ourselves that we don't like? We take a stick, we eat ourselves, we go and say, how bad I am, I didn't expect myself to be like that. We try to find like someone to blame. Look, it's because of my father. According to me, we should just welcome it. Because really, I don't know why. I've tried a few times and I found some theories, but none of them was really convincing. But why do we have this strange idea of already having to be arrived? We start with a point of comparison of ourselves of already having to be perfect. We are what we are. And when we recognize of something of ourselves that we don't like, the process is of that of bringing that to the surface and to see that together also with the other aspects. There are many aspects that we have, good, bad. And then when I allow myself to see that and to put that on the table, to put like the cards all over the table, cards open on the table, and some of them are good, some of them are bad, and once I've seen all of them, then I can choose which one of these I want to cultivate and which ones I want to abandon bit by bit. It comes to my mind this story that touched me deeply. It's an image that somehow it helps. It's a bit like this. Once a man came to me many years ago in Brazil. He was a very, very big man. Imagine like imagine someone big, you make it bigger. He had like arms like this, like with tattoos and so on. Anyway, he was huge. It's not the stereotype of those that go to the Buddhist centers if we need to create a stereotype. And it was like a course. It was like a weekend in the of the with the teachings of the Heart Sutra. The Heart Sutra. It was a very very good guy. It was very big, but he was also very sweet. And he came to me and he said, "Look, Lama, I need to thank you because you saved my life." One thing's okay, maybe from a point of view, I don't know, but it's not a metaphor. It was a difficult moment of my life. It was night. I took the gun and I I pressed the trigger to kill myself. The gun didn't fire, and I had used it many times. The first time that it didn't start. Then I was like shocked. I didn't know what to do. I took the phone in my hand. I started going through something, and then a video view passes through, and I was just listening to it, watching it, and that changed me because I saw a part of me of something beautiful, and I was able to welcome it. I was able to see something else, and as I was ready to try again with the gun, I left it aside, and it changed completely my path. And the most beautiful thing that man showed me is the fact that he was able to recognize in himself what that video helped me to. Yeah, what that video did was just a tool, but what he did in himself. He was able to see his quality and to see that in front of something bad, there was also that good side, and I can take care of that good side instead of just simply pointing the finger to what is wrong. And so, all of us have aspects that are not nice. For a long time, talking about myself, I've said that I'm lazy. Many people will say, you're lazy, but can you imagine? You don't know me enough. I am less lazy than once, but still I'm lazy. I know myself. And I say it more like as a way to be able to overcome laziness. But what happens is that it's part of our process to recognize and to see what is not right and to welcome it. Not to welcome it in the sense of saying just yeah, but I'm just like that. I remember once there was like someone with a t-shirt saying I am like this, you need to accept me for what I am. And it came to my mind to put on the other side, yes, I need to accept you for what you are, but you shouldn't. What does it mean? I shouldn't impose on you who you should be, but also you shouldn't relax in what you are. In other words, the right term would be I accept what I am in the sense that I don't impose to myself to already have to be in a certain way, but I direct myself towards what I want to become. I accept who you are, but I try to help you to become a better version of yourself. But what was meant with that t-shirt that you need to accept me for what I am, that I am just is that I'm just like this and I'm not going to change anything. And this is a mistake because if a Buddha wears that t-shirt, then it's fine. But a being when it's like a being that is at peace with himself and in perfect harmony with every being. But if I'm suffering and I'm angry and this and that, and it says that I'm just like this, I need to accept me for what I am, then okay, if you want to carry on like that, then fine, but I don't think so. And so what happens is that I need to welcome myself for what I am, but I need to direct with determination towards what I want to become. I love you and I accept you for what you are. I don't impose on you what you should already be, but I accompany you at the best of my capacity to become a better version of yourself. And the same thing is about our society, is about the world in which we live. When I look at the society and the world in which we live, it's far from being perfect. I accept the world in which I live. I don't impose on it to be different, but I want to interact with the world in order to help it to become different. I don't know if this is clear. And this is very important because when we start to see the various aspects of what we are, the step of not generalizing is already an important step. I'm not sad or happy. I have sadness or happiness. The fact of not identifying in a role is another important step. I'm not the Lama. I perform. I play the role of Lama. Then, to simplify, we say I'm the Lama, but I'm not what I am in my reality. And inside of this, if we are able to not identify with a role, not generalize oneself with an aspect or another aspect, then we will see that our being is complex. And so it's important, first of all, to welcome that our being as a fluid characteristic. And by fluid, I don't mean like gender fluid. That there could also be that, nothing against it. That's another aspect of the characteristic. Today I like one thing, tomorrow I like another thing. That can also be like that. But by fluid, I mean that we're not one thing or another. We are a continuous flow of thoughts, feelings, sensations, and so on, with a certain coherence and sometimes incoherence. And inside of this, there are many aspects. And when I recognize what is not right, when I see that there are some things that are not right of myself, I see them, I welcome them, because if I try to block them, if I try to shut them off, if I try to pretend that they're not there, they will talk louder and louder until they're seen. So, is there anger? Yes. Is there sadness? Yes. Is there a feeling of wanting to do this or that? Is there an attitude where, I'm not true, or I cheated, or I did this and that? Yes. I have the courage of looking that in the face and to say, yes, I've done this, I've done that, I've said that or the thing, and I don't hide it from myself without getting into a state of judgment of myself. Let's imagine that we want to tell someone our deepest secrets of non-beautiful things. What is the first condition that is necessary in order to be able to do that? To feel that we are in a protected context. Because if I try to talk about myself and then I feel judged, then I pull myself back. And that's the thing that we need to do also with ourselves, to create, first of all, a secure, a safe environment. And that means that I don't judge myself, I don't generalize myself on the basis of one thing or the other. I cheated here, I lied here, and I said the truth there. But if we allow ourselves to look at ourselves in the eyes and to admit the things that we did that are not nice, the aspects of ourselves that are not nice, that are harmful, that we have today, without opposing to them, and and also without getting dragged away by them. I see them, I recognize them, they are there. Why are they there? Because I am in my process and I'm uh, carried by my anger, ignorance, envy, and so on. And all my past brought me between one thing and the other to have these thoughts, have these experiences. There is a practice in the practice of Vajrasattva that says, me guided by not knowing, not seeing, by the obscuration of not knowing, not seeing, I did this and that. And it's not a conceptual non-seeing, it's also an emotional aspect. There are many things in this. And the process of purification is not how bad I was, I need to punish myself, I need to welcome myself. I don't know, to me it comes to my mind like a child that does something wrong, and then it comes to us saying that he did something wrong. I could say to the kid, no, it's nothing, never mind, just take this sweet. Because I don't want to make the kid feel bad, so I give him something nice and I tell him, no, it's nothing, it was like terrible what he did, but, and I just give you like a candy. Then I will say, poor kid, because what is the message that I'm giving to him? Okay, you went through a difficult, complex process of recognizing your mistake and admitting it, and then I just say, okay, that effort is worthless, what you did is nothing. That is not the right thing to do. On the other hand, I could say to the kid, yes, it's true, you did wrong, and I come here and I punish you. Will he still come to me and admit his mistakes next time? No. The ideal thing that I believe is right to do is, first of all, to create the moment for listening, to welcome that person that comes to us with with an act of affection, and to say to that person, I'm here to help you not repeat that. What you did, what you lived, was the result of all that has been there until now. How can we prevent it from being there in the future? But there is a place where one needs affection, needs to welcome what was there and to be able to see the future with different eyes. And to do this, I need to feel safe. And this is an exercise that is important for us to do also with ourselves. We can also do it with someone else. but we also need to do it with ourselves and learn to do it, to welcome what has happened. I welcome myself with affection, which means that I don't get into a place of judgment to say, how bad I am, how bad, and also to not victimize myself. I am like this because this and that. I welcome what is there and I say to myself, this is part of my complexity, of my being, and there is also this, and I want to be gradually different. What steps can I take in order to do that? And already this awareness is a lot. Someone could say, yes, Lama, but it's difficult. Yes, it's difficult. If it was easy, we would all be Buddhas. But it's not because it's difficult that we shouldn't do it. Otherwise, it becomes like when someone came to me asking for some advice, also in Brazil, and I was sitting there looking for a solution. Okay, then do like this. And the person said, but it's difficult. Then, okay, I think again. Okay, do like that. This, I don't like it. Then I say to myself, okay. And I thought, again, I found a third possibility. And the person said, yeah, but this, I don't like it. And it's difficult. Okay, then at that point, you just remain where you are. It's difficult, it's not an excuse. It's something I don't like, it's an excuse. I'm not able by all means, then okay, fine. It's painful, okay, fine. We need to respect the measure of our legs. But it's important that if we want to grow, we need to get out of our comfort zone in a sane way. And to go against our habits and to welcome ourselves. I don't know how much is in the habits of each one of you, but often it's not. To create some room in the daily life to to be able to listen to oneself, to be in silence with the word, and to talk with oneself. And I don't mean like a sort of daydreaming of just sitting there. I will do this and do that. No, I'm talking about a process of self-observation, self-analysis, free from judgment and criticism, where we observe ourselves. That's something beautiful. And we're not so used to that. But we can do it. And we start with a little bit, and then this brings a lot of benefit. And so we are constantly in a process of transformation. Our mental image is not static. We're not static beings. But how can we update the mental image as we go on? By welcoming ourselves, by observing ourselves. And here there is a place where we need humility. Humility is not about being less than other people. It's about the fact that reality shouldn't match what I want it to be. If someone comes to us and says, but you shouldn't be like that, what would you answer? If I am, then it's because I can. So I'm sorry, I'm like this. Whether you like it or not, yeah, I am what I am, in the good and or in the bad, isn't it? Then it's as if I would say to the napkin, napkin, you shouldn't be red. What would the napkin say? I am red, whether you like it or not. Then I tell to the napkin, yes, napkin, you're red. Yeah, you're red, but it's better if you would be green. And the napkin could say, yeah, you're right. Can you help me to transform into green? Let's find a way to do that. But in order to update our mental image, to allow ourselves to update our mental image, because before updating, we need to allow ourselves to update. There is a place where we need to identify ourselves less with that mental image and to allow ourselves to understand more this flow that we have. But also in the present moment, it depends from what angle we look at ourselves. We are a different being. Some people in a familiar context are very strong and brave, and then in the job context are the opposite or the other way around. There are people that maybe in a difficulty of work they're super brave and strong, and then when they go with the wife or husband or mother, it changes completely. There are people that have characteristics that are different in different contexts. More than there are people, we are made like that. So, who am I? That happens at work or at family. I am all of that. Have different aspects. And in the midst of all of this, there is also another important part. On this aspect of the mental image, I think it's clear, right? So, to update the mental image, to understand that our mental image is a photograph and it's not the reality, to decrease the attachment that we have to our mental image, and to be able to do that, it's important also to do that not only with ourselves but also with things around us, with people, situations. I make an example, then we end with another thing quickly. Sometimes we live a certain experience. I make a specific example. Two people are together like a couple, and they chose to be together because, I don't know, it's their business. But anyway, they chose to be together, and usually, often, is because there is affinity, there is a friendship, there is attraction. There are many reasons for which that they believe that by being together, then it gets summed up for themselves. So what happens is that, okay, these people, then they give a name to each other and they say, okay, we are a couple, and a name is given to that relationship. The attraction that is there between them, the friendship, the way of relating with each other, and all the rest. With time, it doesn't remain the same. It's impermanent, isn't it? Naturally, it is. So, what happens is that as time passes, many things, many directions can be taken. I make one example that is in order to explain this aspect. It's not the only possible one, of course, but it could get a time where the experience, the direct experience, doesn't match to the given name. The direct experience is not bad, but it's lived with suffering because it doesn't match the given name. Because if you are my wife or my partner or my husband, I should have towards you this type of feeling, this type of relationship, and so on. Something that in this moment is not there. But there are these other aspects. There is trust, there is friendship, there are other things. But are you my husband, partner, wife, or not? And here there is something that it's that in order to be harmony in this, either, how can I say, the content matches to the label or the label needs to be changed. When the content doesn't match with the label, that creates an incoherence, and then at a certain point, also when the content is nice, I don't know if this is clear, the content is fine, there is nothing wrong with that, in the sense that there is nothing bad, so to speak, with the content itself, but it doesn't match anymore with the label. What do we do in this case? Either we live in the incoherence, but in our culture we have a hard time to do that. In other cultures I've seen in the East where this is less difficult, but in the times where we live, we have a more of a hard time to live in the incoherence. Or so either we change the content and we check what parts of the content we could change, because the beauty of being impermanent is that if I was able to shift to this on this side, then I can also shift it on the other side. It's not like just going in one direction. So if during time there is an aspect of the relationship where there was like some distance, then we can also get more closer. Many things are possible. But if there is this incoherence, either we change the content or we change the label. And the experience of changing the label is beautiful, because when we change the label in the same way, what happens is that from a situation where there was incoherence, as a feeling of an uneasy feeling, then we change the label and then everything is fine. Partly nothing changed, but actually everything changed. I don't know if I'm explaining myself. So it's not that it's the content being wrong, and it's important for us to remember that. But the label brings some expectations. Like the first delusion of from advertising is when I was very little. I was like 2 or 3 years old, and I went to the supermarket with mom, and I remember seeing a box of cornflakes, and I remember that I was here really big, so I was very little, and there was like a picture of the cornflakes with the milk like going around like this, and the pieces of strawberry. I don't know if you have that image. And I remember of getting home all happy, and I opened the cornflakes and there were no strawberries. And the worst thing was the inner feeling of having been tricked. And then I saw that in the most now, like it says on the box, it doesn't contain strawberries. The image is just a suggestion. But when I was a kid, I told myself it's not right that you put the strawberry when it's not there. Then the cornflakes were nice, but I was not happy because there was no strawberry. If you just had the picture of the cornflakes with no strawberry, I wouldn't have bought it. But anyway, it would have been maybe better even. During life, about many things, there is a process of updating the label, updating the mental image. But often, one of the best ways is also when we do both. We fix the content a bit, we also fix a little bit the label, and then we find a balance. Also remembering that there are various moments. And this was the last thing that I wanted to uh, face. So when we are at work or with ourselves or with family or friends in a situation where there is incoherence between what we experience and the mental image, the label that we put, we can't leave it for a long time like that. We don't need to do it right away, but it's like a warning, and that it says, okay, here we need to do something. Either I work on the content or on the label or both. But let's remember that when I see you, I relate with my mental image that I have of you and not with you. Something that I learned on this, for example, okay, I see a person, I meet a person, my father, mother, sister, friend, whoever. Let's take the mother as an example. There is a moment where it's important to remember that our mother, before being mother, okay, it's a woman, it's a human being. That then also performs the function of mother for us. And it changes a lot. Because what happens is that when some functions that we believe that had to be in a certain way and then are not, then we are disappointed and we blame them. But when we say that first of all, okay, you are a person and I allow you to just be like as a person, and then okay, also as a mother, but first of all, you are a person and I allow myself to see that person and to remove the weight of that idealized image that I project. Someone a while ago, actually recently in a conference, there were the questions of the audience. One of the questions was like, how can I donate my mother? The 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 more the most correct answer would be I don't know because I don't know the story. But the point that I tried to bring was that okay, first of all, okay, I think it was like to help, not to donate. Um, First of all, I need to see the person and to remove the category. And this is about any aspect. To me, it has helped. Um, for example, going to a restaurant, like the person that comes to serve me, okay, what is the category? Um, the waiter. But before being a waiter is a person. And so I say hi to you as a person, then you also play the role of the waiter for me. So, hello, how are you? It has happened to me that someone would serve me in a unfriendly, bad way, and I would look at the person and I thought to myself, okay, maybe he has a bad day. It can happen to anyone. And so, also in the most simple example, we go to the restaurant. What do we have in front? A person that is performing the function of a waiter or a waiter. A person, but often we don't relate like that. And this is a point of reflection. And then our life is cyclical, cyclic. There are many phases. An interesting work that I invite you to do if you have like a mental room, physical room to do it, is to look backwards, maybe using pictures, maybe using dates to certain events, and to look at cycles. There are periods where we start things. For example, in my life, I have often cycles of 12 years. And so to see that our life is cyclic, and it's important for us somehow to understand, to be able to recognize in what period do we find ourselves. If I am an introspective period and I try to do something that is extrovert, what will happen is that I will have a very difficult, I need to put a lot of effort in that, and so the other way around. And so this is just to make one example, but there are periods of our lives, there are periods of the where we create, there are periods of where we take care of things, there are periods where we end things, and sometimes also today when some things happen, okay, everything happens together. Like there are periods of illness, periods of having to uh, get away from people, periods where everything is flowing, periods where everything is going bad. And when someone comes to me and says, Lama, everything is going bad, then okay, if nothing is going if everything is going bad, then nothing is going bad. It's like, in the sense that it's like a generalized problem. It's like when I have pain in the finger and then everything that I touch is painful. And then, okay, what can I learn from this moment, but so that I can grow with that experience? Remembering that it's impermanent. Because one of the mistakes that we do in modern life is the idea of having somehow to always be productive, always in the same way. Even we created systems of communication and other things that now it's not, we shouldn't get into that for a thing of continuous productivity. But we human beings need our cycles. We need to be awake and to sleep. But not only that, a woman, for example, from a physical point of view, manifests her cycles with more clarity. The man doesn't have a physical manifestation like a woman so that you can see the cycles, but also men have their hormonal cycles. I remember once was in the car with my mom and his ex-husband. He was Italian, called Stefano, coming from Trento. He then passed away, and as we were in the car, sometimes he would, actually often he would swear for the traffic. And what happens is that my mom at the time was studying hormonal cycles, and she said, you know that while women have longer cycles, men actually have testosterone cycles each X minutes. Let's do a test. Okay, tomorrow we go in the car. Let's see the reactions of Stefano, and let's see how often does he go through the cycles. She was sitting there with the watch, with the checking. Okay, like a certain few minutes will pass and then it will burst out. It was like a clock. So what happens is that if I am in a moment where my body, my environment brings me towards a certain direction, what should I do? To be able to say well, to be able to catch that direction in the wrong way, in the right way, and not to go against the flow, to be able to use the current well. In the cycle of a woman, this is more clear. There are moments when you need to, where there are more introspection, moments of creation. Now we don't go in the hormonal cycle analysis, which is very interesting. But and I'm convinced that if a woman has the capacity of having awareness of the various cycles, of the various phases inside of his cycle that is happening every month, and is able to use the moment of greater introspection, the moment of greater creativity, and to give to the world, and she's able to use it well, then she has a further push. But if she expects herself to be in the same way always, then she struggles a lot. Because if I am in a moment where my body is inviting me to be more with myself, and actually I should do the opposite, then I have a greater difficulty. And it's important for us to see, to recognize. There is a friend, which is a very good lawyer in Brazil, and she worked for many years in a with other lawyers in São Paulo. Her boss was a Japanese, very well educated man, and she was a very tempered, or very kind of tough woman. And there were days that she would go a bit beyond what's, and she would behave in a bit of a exaggerated way, so to speak. And her boss, when he realized that, then he would leave like some chocolate on the table, and And every time that she saw the chocolate, then it was like a way for her to realize, okay, I exaggerated. But the main thing was of having the awareness. Then it would help her to not project on other things and to not react in an exaggerated way, to have an awareness of what's going on in the inside. To me, it has happened many times to wake up one day, or also in the middle of a day, and to feel like a certain tension and to feel like, okay, I'm quite tense. But what is our tendency when we have like an inner feeling of tension, of nervousness? To look for the guilty outside, and we look and we will find something. But actually, it's important for us to understand what is the phase where I find myself in, where is the wave pushing to, and what is the best way to behave, to act, to interact in that moment. If it's a moment where I'm more nervous, then it's the moment that I should be more silent. There are moments where we feel that we should be more lonely, moments where we feel like we need to be with others more, to be able to recognize these moments. There are moments where everything is flowing, and this is the moment where we should take advantage of it to do things, to create. There are moments where doesn't matter what you try to do, it just doesn't work. So it's the moment to kind of revisit what you did and to program what you want to do, not to push in the present moment. I don't know if this is clear. And so the idealized image we also projected in the present moment of what I should do of and how things are, but we should remember that we should also put in the equation the moment that we are living, and to be able to recognize the right moments makes all the difference. And also here we need sensitivity. We need silence to be able to listen, to be able to understand the ideal moment for everything. For me, it has happened many times having to deal with situations like far away situations, like particularly Brazil, Italy. There is like the center in São Paulo and the center here in Italy, the Kunpen, and I have some responsibilities about both of them. And many times, and it made me smile, that in the same moment there are very similar problems in both of them that are not talking to each other and which have nothing to do with each other aside from the spiritual tradition. Someone could say, yes, you are the point of reference, it's your fault. You're the bridge between the two. No, I wouldn't say that it's that. But what happens is that very often I see similar aspects, but also people that don't have anything to do with each other, but that have similar moments. So it's like to say that someone, okay, we make an example. I have a bit of a cold. Why? Because I slept a few days ago, it was hot, and I slept the whole night with the window open. Actually, because there was my little dog there, and she was really hot, and so we opened the window, and then I got some cold. What happens if more people dream and sleep with the window open in the summer? Depends on the body of each one. Some of them will get sick, others will not. What happens is that somehow I should be able to welcome that what happened is I didn't get sick because I am me. Me, like many others, we were there with the window, with the cold wind, and that was one of the conditions that made me sick. And to understand that the conditions also influence us and don't touch only us. There are moments of greater conflict, there are moments of greater harmony, moments of where we grow, moments where we just stay still. And this is about both our personal level and the working context, the family, the national, the worldwide context, many things. But also nature itself shows us, okay, there is spring, summer, autumn, winter. It's not that it always has to be the same. And if we want to spend our lives in summer, then in winter it would be bad. One of the main things that we don't do today, and now I don't want to get deep into that because it's a moment to end. One of the basic points for a healthy life from millennia is to be able to recognize in what moment of the year, what season I am, and to adapt my lifestyle to that season. It's the basis. We should we eat the same thing in summer, winter, and so on? No. What do we do usually? We eat the same things. The time to wake up, our conduct, our lifestyle it should be adapted to spring, to summer, to autumn, winter. It should change because we are influenced by the environment. And if we adapt our lifestyle, then we are able to collect the best of the environment from the environment around us in our favor. And similarly, there is not just the environment from the point of view of summer, spring, autumn, and so on. There is also the day and night. There are also other aspects, subtle aspects that we're not able to see directly with our senses. Other types of influences also. For example, we can make an astrological reading. There are many types of influences happening of which we're not aware, but we can be able to perceive them and to find the right way to do things. So, in other words, to be able to sail better and better. And among these things, there is also the cycle of our own life, of our age. I need to respect my boat other than the currents. And the boat is also changing during time. And also, this is part of it. And it's not that because years pass, then it gets worse. That's not for granted. Each moment has its own importance. And the truth is that I believe that as we go on, there are wonderful opportunities that we find in front of us. It becomes very difficult, challenging when I don't accept changes. I want to remain attached to the idealized image of before, and I don't welcome the opportunities that are there. And so, to conclude, let's remember at least that we relate with the world and with ourselves and with the others through idealized images. If we're able to have this awareness, this is already an important step that is done. Then we should remember, okay, when I see the napkin, I relate with the mental image of the napkin, and so the same with people, with situations, and bit by bit, this brings us to some humility where I shouldn't impose on you what I think that you should be. I bring you my image, but I don't impose to you that you should be that. And so for me, this is one of the key points. When for the first time I listened to this concept of the mental image, it gave me very particular joy and it opened up my mind. And I hope that it can be also beneficial for you. We end up here. Next week I will not be there because on Saturday, on Sunday, I need to translate for Trinja Rinpoche. I need to be in Prato, and then 4 or 5 days after that, I need to be in the island of Giglio for some conferences. And so, even if I love you and I really like to be here from Prato to Milan and so on, some time would would be necessary. So this is all. I thank you a lot for this moment together. I imagine that we would see each other the week after. After that, I imagine because I need to check the calendar, but I imagine that we do. Now let's make our dedications. At dawn or dusk, night or midday, may the three jewels grant us their blessings. May they help us to achieve all realizations and to sprinkle the path of our lives with various signs of auspiciousness. Thank you, everyone.